We are talking some Detroit Lions, a little bit of rumors here because an article popped up on Fansided AllLions talking about a Lions potentially trading for a specific player on the defense of another team. So we're going to break down this potential trade because I think it's very intriguing how they went around this. Talk about it. Is it legitimate? Is this something the Lions could do? What do you think about this trade? What would I think about this trade? We're just going to break it all down because this is the first time I've heard this offseason, but honestly, this is not the first time that I've heard this. Rumors were coming around before the NFL trade deadline potentially for this player, and we've been hearing about this player for some time, since 2019, so we're going to get into it, talk about it. But before we get into today's video, if you're a fan of the Detroit Lions, Herman Moore in everything, then go ahead and subscribe to Lions Nation Unite. Why is that? Because we love our Detroit Lions. We talk about it, and we get a different view from a former Detroit Lions player, a great, and we do interviews too as well on here with former Lions and maybe some Lions that are currently on the roster. So without further ado, let's get this thing started. All Lions Fan Nation, Fansided wrote an article talking about the Detroit Lions should be making a trade for edge rusher Josh Allen of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why is this really intriguing? Because myself in 2019 NFL Draft was really hoping Josh Allen would fall to the Detroit Lions. They would select him instead of TJ Hockenson, who I had him higher graded than Hockenson. However, he got drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars right before the Detroit Lions. So in this article, the Lions had an opportunity to correct the mistake and make a trade for him. So this trade would be the Detroit Lions receiving Josh Allen, edge rusher, while the Jacksonville Jaguars get the Detroit Lions a round 1 pick 18 selection in this year's draft. Before you just instantly poo-poo it, Josh Allen is a pretty damn good player. He is a guy that can get after the quarterback. He's done a good job, and right now he's kind of entering his prime. And you got to remember that our defensive lineman, he was part of the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. They used to call it the team that would just freaking dominate people on the line of scrimmage for the defense. So he was a integral part towards that in Jacksonville, as well as he understands some of these players for that football team. Josh Allen here, he's 6'5", 262 pounds. He's got 33.5-inch arms. He was drafted in 2019, pick 7, right before the Lions draft pick. So if he would have fallen, I do believe the Lions would have taken him over TJ Hockenson because he is a better prospect, in my opinion, at that time. He's only 25 years old, so he's young, entering his prime. He's not old at all. You look at his stats this past season as well as in his career. In 2022, he only had 35 solo tackles, as well as 4 forced fumbles, 7 sacks, and 0 interceptions. I tell you what, though, he's good because in his career is 119. He's had 7 forced fumbles, 27.5 sacks, 1 interception. Now, his stats this year, though, with 35 solo tackles, he was 150th plus in the season. Sacks, he was 55th in the NFL, so he's more of a second tier. Forced fumble, he's just tied for 3rd in the NFL. So he has some good stats for sure. I don't know if this is something the Detroit Lions would do because of what occurred this past season. Wasn't, the guy that was getting the most sacks. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson had more than him. Hell, even our own James Houston had more than him. But this is the reasoning why they thought the Detroit Lions should trade, so the Detroit Lions not be as far from contending as one would think. The franchise hasn't been the playoffs since 2016, but it looks like a major step going forward at 9-8 in 2022. The Lions could deal one of their first-round picks and get a guaranteed young dynamic duo of Allen and Aiden Hutchinson on the edge for years to come. That would be a scary development for the NFC North in the rest of the conference. He always talks about how the Jacksonville Jaguars are $22 million over the cap, and they could be looking to reduce some of that cap space. This is something that I've talked about endlessly, and this is what I said about Jacksonville last year when they spent all that money in free agency is at some point the money comes due. You have to recognize that if you spend big at some point, you're going to be over the cap and it's going to hurt you. Yeah, they got to the playoffs, won their division in a weak division, Christian Kirk and all these players that they get, but now you're going to have problems re-signing some of these young players, one being Josh Allen, and I think that's very interesting and why you need to be fiscally responsible. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about the Detroit Lions potentially trading for a Josh Allen? Pick 18, you would have to look at the talent that's going to be there. First, edge is not really a position of need that we need, but we can always do BPA. So if you're looking at pick 18, if the Lions decided to make this trade, you say, who would be there at pick 18? Who would you basically be giving up? Because you would probably have to extend Josh Allen to a long-term deal. So the cap does have ramifications there. So who could you get? Well, there is players, if you're wanting to go edge, potentially you just go there at pick 6. And at pick 18, you can go cornerback. But what if they wanted to just go Dever Witherspoon at pick 6? Or if God loves us, Jalen Carter fell there, then you could potentially still go defensive line or edge at that position. There's going to be still some quality players there at edge. But if you didn't want to go there, you'd have to look at potentially defensive tackle, cornerback position. So you could potentially be giving up a Christian Gonzalez if he was there, Joey Porter Jr., maybe you want to go Osiris Torrance, guard. Maybe even Bijan Robinson is there at that pick. So those are the players you'd be giving up for Josh Allen. Personally, I think it's an intriguing trade. I don't think, honestly, I do think the pick would be worth it for the talent because he's a young, good player. He can be dynamic, just like the guy saying if you paired him up with Aiden Hutchinson is really good. But I would say no, because you have the ability to draft your own players, a young player, and there's still going to be some damn good players at pick 18. We're talking some premium talent there. So why pay extra for an older player when you can pay less for a rookie that you're drafting? And I do trust Brad Holmes' draft ability. He has good presence of drafting quality players. So even though I do think this would be a good trade, in all honesty, for compensation and worth, I think that'd be a win-win. But at the same time, you're giving up young talent. Why not just get your own young talent, save money on the cap? Let's not follow suit with some of these other teams that just blows money, because at some point you're going to have to pay. Like, so if you were to trade for Josh Allen, you're going to probably have to extend him, but then you have contracts eventually coming up in the next couple of years. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay, you got to look at the rest of the offensive line. Jonah Jackson. What's going to happen with Jared Goff? Jamison Williams in a couple of years. This is the type of stuff you got to think about, not just in the now, but in the next couple of years. That's what you got to think about. You know, it just like in a business, you think of the year 1 plan, year 3 plan, year 5 plan. That's how you think about if you're an entrepreneur trying to think of a business. Same concept with the Detroit Lions. You know, you see teams that go all in, and that's great for that year, but the bill has to be paid at some point, just like the Rams, just like we're seeing with Jacksonville now. Let's stick to the plan with drafting our players. If you want to get some players, you can go in free agency. Maybe you don't want to spend big money on a Daron Payne. Okay, I get it. you can find quality players in free agency that's not going to be expensive. That's not going to hamper the rest of the players on your football team when you can just draft your players. Trust the process of Brad Holmes. Trust that he is able to find kick-ass talent in this draft. He finds it in the mid-rounds. I'm pretty damn sure he can find it at pick 18. I do like Josh Allen. I absolutely do. And I would have picked him over TJ Hockenson, no doubt. And I wish he would have fell there. But at the same time, we're in a position right now as a franchise, as a organization with great leadership all the way down. Stick to the plan. Let's just stick to the plan and put most of our chips in the draft. I go 85% draft, 15% free agency. So I don't mind getting a premium talent. One, like if you want to sign a person to a decent contract, one, but the rest, these one-year deals and, take a little bit of risk on maybe a, one-year deal on a player who was injured last year. And then just rest for the draft. Because I think that's how you build your team. And this is what we've seen the turnaround for this franchise is due to the draft. And that's why, at least on my channel, on Lions Nation Unite, we focus a lot on the draft. Because that is where you really build your football team, is the NFL draft. It is. Don't want to make the same mistakes as other teams. I want to be a team that's a perennial winner, that consistently wins, and for that to occur, you got to win in the draft and be economically sound. That's really what it is. That's why this team has been good, and it turned it around. So, but let me know what you thought. Maybe you completely disagree with me. Maybe you're like, hey, man, I would love to get Josh Allen. In all honesty, I totally get it. I wouldn't be upset at all. Matter of fact, you can completely disagree with me. I really don't care, because we all have opinions and we all are fans and we all want to build the team differently. So let me know, what do you think about this trade? With that said, folks, adios.
Perfect.